it's the same with us. We've had these stars. The understanding of them for thousands of years have been recorded all around the world. So this little map is just some brief summaries of those whetū. So through North America, they were known as a time for ritual. For the Aztecs, it was also Te Tauhou. It was the new year for the Aztecs through Central and South America. Within a lot of iwi within Africa, they were a tohu of a sign of the rains, essentially. So areas where it's really dry, they were using these whetū to predict weather, essentially, because they need water in those dry areas. The official name of these stars is Greek. So the Pleiades is known as the Seven Sisters. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Seven Sisters. When I was younger, I was taught that it was Matariki, the Seven Sisters. Kyle, it's not Matariki, the Seven Sisters. That's a Greek kōrero that was brought here. I'll get into that in a little bit. Really commonly, though, the most common way I explain these stars is people that drive Subaru, the cars. That is the Japanese kōrero e pānaki a Matariki relating to those stars. So the logo of the car is actually the Matariki stars. That's just what they call them in the Northern Hemisphere in Japan. And their kōrero is 6 stars. So all around the world, lots of different kōrero, and this is just a brief summary. I really encourage people actually to just have a bit of ako of what different cultures have called these whetū, because there's really interesting, not just stories, but the mātauranga e pānaki a Matariki. You'll find that a lot of the knowledge around these stars is actually shared throughout the world. They all had these really similar understandings of these whetū and kind of how they worked practically and, through mātauranga and science. Throughout the Pacific, I find this really beautiful. As a lot of us, I'm sure we know that we share Aotearoa with all of our whānau throughout the Pacific. Te mita o te reo, the kind of dialect almost, we share really similar kupu throughout the Pacific. And Matariki is known essentially as the same thing, just slight variations within different kupu around the Pacific. So we call them Matariki. They're known as Matali'i, Mataliki, Makali'i, so etc., etc. It's actually the same kupu. It's the same word. It's just different dialects and different reo. But we're all sharing that, which is really cool. And if any of you have been to a lot of the Pacific Islands, sometimes I hear Hawaiians speak, and you can pick up kupu. You can pick up words that our whānau in Hawaii actually speak, which is really beautiful. For me, Matariki is one of those things that really brings us together with our whānau throughout the Pacific. Different variations of that same kōrero, which is really cool. So the Greeks, though, they knew them as the Seven Sisters. So this is the official name. If you Google these star clusters, they're known as the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. That's the official astronomical name. And this photo over here, you can see they lie within the constellation Taurus. So Taurus is, you guys probably know star signs. The 12 zodiac star signs like Aries, Sagittarius. Taurus is one of those, and that's where Matariki officially lives, within the bull. But again, that's a northern kōrero. So I'll get into that a little bit later, just of what that means for us in the south. So the creation story, this is where Matariki comes from. So I'm sure a lot of us know, do we all know the story of Wānanga? Some of us, yeah, kia ora. If we don't know the story, so back in the day, Rangi, the Sky Father and Papatuanuku were held together, and they had their children between them, but everything was dark, and there was no light in the world, essentially. And then, of course, Tānei Mahuta pushed them apart. So this is what essentially happened. He started to push the parents apart. Eventually, they started to break, and they were then separated in an instant. And light filled te ao, light filled the world. And this is the creation of the world that we all live in today. So this little animation, I call this the Māori Big Bang, that point in time where everything was created from an instant. Light filled the world. And it gave us the world that we now live in today. So Ranginui was thrown into the sky. He became the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku stayed here, and she is, of course, the Earth Mother. So they're separated. In that story, there was the brother of Tāwhiri Mātia. So he was pissed off. He was really angry about the separation. He didn't want it to happen, and he fought with the brothers. And eventually, his anger, he was so angry about the separation, and he wanted to stay with his father, but he was on the earth. So he ripped his eyes out. He gouged his eyes. He threw them up into the sky, and they shattered on his father's chest, and they became Ngā Mata Oariki Tāwhiri Mātia. So Te Ingowaroa or Matariki, the long name of Matariki was Ngā Mata, the eyes or the face, or Ariki of the god Tāwhiri Mātia. So Tāwhiri Mātia is Te Atua or the winds, the rains, weather, crazy weather. So we've been having a bit of that recently. That's Tāwhiri Mātia. And over time, Matariki, it became Ngā Mata Ariki, the eyes of the gods. And then as Māori, we shorten kupu often. It became Mata Ariki, and then we got lazy and we said Matariki. So Matariki is Te Ingowa, the short name of Ngā Mata Oariki Tāwhiri Mātia. And that's the origin of those whetū. So that's a tohu of Tāwhiri Mātia when we see Matariki. It's also a tohu of him being his eyes, staying with his father. So this is whakapapa of Matariki. So Matariki is this wahine here. She is the mother. And this guy here is Rehua. So these two, Matariki and Rehua, there's hononga, there's connections between those two. And they're the ones that had the children of Matariki. So often you hear the kōrero Matariki, the seven sisters. It is Matariki and her tamariki. So there are some sisters in this cluster, but we also have Tane in there too, and there's 8 of them. So it's a different kōrero for us. So the eldest of these children, she is a whetū known as Pohutakawa, this one over here. So she was born first, and then after her, the stars kind of came in pairs. So we have Tupu Anuku and Tupu Arangi, so Wahine and Tane. So there is a balance between those two. Te Wairoa o Tane me Wahine, the energy of male and female, there's a balance between Tupu Anuku and Tupu Arangi. Then came Waiti and Waitā, Waiti being Wahine and Waitā being Tane. So again, there's a balance between those two, they came together. Waipuna Arangi and Ururangi, they came together, they make a pair, and there's a balance between those two. And then Hiwe i te rangi is the Te Pōtiki o te whānau o Matariki. She's the youngest of the family of Matariki. Now Hiwe i te rangi and Pōtikawa, there is no Tane there. There's not a balance between Wahine and Tane, but oku whakaro is that these two, Hiwe i te rangi and Pohutakawa, are connected, being the eldest and the youngest. So there's that kind of tuakana taine between these two. I'll get into that a little bit later, but this is just a really brief kind of overview of the Matariki. So yeah, I always stress this with people because I always hear, oh, Matariki, the 7 sisters. Matariki, she's the one whetū. She's got 8 tamariki, and they're not all sisters. So there's a lot of kōrero around these whetū, which I'll get into. So this photo here, this is a photo of the star cluster as we'd see them through a telescope. So these are the whetū from a southern hemisphere perspective. And the positions of these whetū, these are the names of all of the whetū, how they lie in the sky. So Matariki, she sits kind of in the middle. She's the biggest whetū o te whānau o Matariki. Tupu Arangi and Tupu Nuku, we can see them to the side, they go together. We have Ururangi and Waipunanangi, we can see them together kind of above the cluster. We have Waiti and Waitā, they also go together. Pohutakawa is below all of them. She is, of course, the eldest, so she sits down the bottom. I'll get into what the stars mean. And then Hiwe i te rangi, these are the 2 that make a pair. Yeah, so this is kind of how we see them in the south. And this is the whakapapa of them as we see them in the south. So this is kind of like the photo I was looking at earlier. We have Matariki. She's kind of, we call her the kai whakahaere, the conductor of the cluster. So she's looking after those stars. Tupuarangi, Tupunuku, male, female, male, female, male, female, and then the 2 sacred stars. So that's kind of how the cluster looks and appears to us here in Aotearoa. So this is a specific kōrero ki konei for here. If you took this star cluster and you went up north to the northern hemisphere, it would be completely different. And I'll get into that in a little bit too. So just about what each whetū within Matariki means. So when we see Matariki, each of the tamariki and Matariki, they all represent different aspects within te taiao, te ao, so the environment, the world, and the way that we conduct ourselves, basically. So Matariki being the mother, she is the tohu of people. She represents our health, our hauora, and the well-being of people, essentially. So just the general vibes of people is through Matariki, her being the mother, and she's right in the center. Tupu a rangi. So the kupu tupu means, or tipu, means to grow. So tupu a rangi, grows in the sky. So this is a tohu of food sources from the sky. So traditionally back in the day, our tupuna might have been harvesting kereru. Please don't do that today. We're not allowed to. But back in the day, those would be one of the food sources. So it represents ngā manu, our birds, of course, but not just manu, it also represents ngā rako. So our trees, our rako, grow up into the sky. So this can also represent different things like fruit, for example, which grow up into the sky and need sunlight essentially to grow. So that's what tupu arangi represents. It also represents not just our food sources of what we get from, the sky. It also represents te hauora or te taiao, the well-being of that environment. So those, when we see these stars, it doesn't represent what we're getting from it. It also represents how that environment will be for the year ahead. And then we have tupu and nuku, which is the opposite. So tupu and nuku, tupu again to grow. Nuku comes from ground, papa tua nuku, the earth mother. So this is food sources that we specifically get from the ground, things that we grow on the ground, kumara, etc. Pretty much similar as tupu arangi. So these two represent the kai from the sky and from the ground, and they go together, make a pair. We have Urirangi, which is the highest star. He's highest in the cluster, which is kind of the winds, ngā haue whā. So this is the tohu of the winds of the year. And then that goes with Waipuna arangi. So these two make a pair. Wai, water, puna, to gather, to pull, arangi, in the sky. So water that gathers in the sky. And that represents the rains. So this whetū is a sign of the weather, essentially. So this kind of connects to tupua nuku, for example. So when we're growing food, we need the rains to be also, in agreement with the ground and the sky. So there's connections between these whetū in terms of te taiao, the environment, and Waipuna arangi is representing the rains, and she goes with Urirangi. We have wai, water. Ti is kind of like fresh water. So this represents our awa, our rivers, our fresh water food sources, and also fresh water itself. So this, when we see this star, this is representing, the health of our tuna, of our eels, of food sources within te awa. But it's also representing kind of like tupu arangi, it also represents the health of our rivers. So nowadays, it's a bit harder for us to go out to our awa all the time because of pollution. I know down where I live, Toku Awa, which is Matauda, my river is heavily polluted. It's not a river that I would ever swim in, unfortunately, because there's a lot of agriculture down in the South Island. So for me, this star is a little bit sad for me because my rivers, personally, for me, they've been really polluted for the last couple of years. But this is a star that represents all the things relating to our awa, which of course are really important for us as Māori because that's part of our pepeha, where we're from. And then this whetū, wahine, she goes with wai tā. So wai again is water. Tā is an old kupu for salt. So this is kind of salt water, essentially. So our oceans, te moana, tangaroa. So this is food sources that we get from the ocean. So, crayfish, fishing, kina. I don't like seafood, which is weird because I'm Ngāi Tahu and everyone goes, oh, we'll get some bluff oysters from your marae. And I'm like, oh, it's not my favorite. I'll bring some for you one day, Hipa, I promise. But yeah, this is a tohu of tangaroa, essentially. So our food sources from the oceans. So when this star specifically, if we the tohunga, so the Māori experts e pāana ki kokorangi relating to astronomy, when they see these stars, if they're not very bright for a certain year, that means that we could predict a time of less kaimoana from the ocean. So often we have rahui, as we know, which is like a restriction. I don't know the English word for rahui. Do you know the English word for rahui, Whai? It's like a restriction, eh? It's not like illegal, yeah. It's like a Māori illegal, like kawa e. Yeah. Yeah, so that's also relating to our oceans and food sources. And then we have the two sacred whetū. So Hiwa e Te Rangi, she's the whetū that represents kind of our aspirations, our goals for the year. She's the star that we kind of look forward to. She represents the future. She also represents new life too. So new beginnings, new life, our goals, things that we're doing as we move forward. And she goes along with Pohutakawa. So Pohutakawa, I teach a lot of kura kaupapa at my mahi, and they know heaps about Matariki, and I'm going, okay, what does Pohutakawa mean? And they all go, oh, she's the star of the dead. She's the Death Star, which sounds really scary to me, the Death Star. Engari, I wouldn't call Pohutakawa the Death Star. She's actually the one that looks after our mate. So she guides our dead into the sky, basically. So yeah, she's not bringing death upon us. She's actually looking after our mate, and she is the eldest in the cluster, the most mature, and she's guiding our mate. There's Wānanga, there's connections to this whetū also with, if you've been up to Cape Reinga up north, if you've been to the Cape where the little lighthouse is, if you look down and you see the point, Te Rerenga or Wairoa, I think, is the leaping of the spirits. There's an individual Pohutakawa tree that sits at the very end of Aotearoa, the very tip. And there's a kōrero around that, as when we pass, our spirit goes to that Pohutakawa, and that's the final place that we leave the earth. And that's why Pohutakawa is named Pohutakawa. She has connections to that specific rākau. There's probably different kōrero around that too, but this is the kōrero that I know. So she has connections to Cape Reinga or Te Rerenga or Wairoa, the leaping of the spirit. So the place that we leave the earth, Pohutakawa is there, waiting for us, basically. So yeah, looking after us, she's not killing us. So back a step, the Greek kōrero around this, and I always really stress this about Matariki is, so this photo here, this shows these are the Greek names for the whetū. So these are the 7 sisters. There's actually more than 7, I think, names there, but they usually have the kōrero around 7. And the Greek kōrero around these stars is that these sisters were being chased by a man named Orion, who's a constellation in the sky. And Zeus took pity on them, so he turned them into doves. He threw them into the sky, and they became the Pleiades, the 7 sisters in the sky, to escape this man that was chasing them. And this photo here is a photo from the northern hemisphere. Now, I get really annoyed often because when you Google Matariki, if you Google the Pleiades 7 sisters, we usually see photos like this. But this is from the northern hemisphere. So our perspective, we don't see the whetū like this. We see the whetū like this. They are the other way for us. And simple explanation is because we're in the southern hemisphere. So if you imagine people in the north, they're looking a certain way, we are kind of looking the opposite. So we're seeing a lot of those same whetū, but being in the south, we have a different perspective. So, constellations like Orion and Taurus, they are upside down for us in Aotearoa. So we don't try and focus on them too much because those kōrero, it doesn't relate to us. It doesn't relate to this whenua either. So it's a different kōrero. And the reason that's important is because the positions of the Matariki whetū, they are there specifically for a reason. So they're not just randomly named and placed. So the pairs that we talked about, you've got tupuarangi, sky, nuku, ground. So sky sits above the ground. Marama makes sense, ne? Now, if you took this to the northern hemisphere, if you flip this photo around, you're going to get the sky below the ground. Doesn't make sense. And the reason this annoys me is because obviously with the public holiday, which is happening, which is really fantastic, I've been seeing a lot of articles, and I've even been in a lot of articles personally where they put a photo from the northern hemisphere and they go, oh, Matariki, and it's the photo from the north. So that kōrero, it's kei te he, it's wrong. So this is how we see these stars. These are the positions for us, ki kone here. So you got sky, earth go together, but they're always in that position. Ururangi and Waipurangi, they're pretty high in the cluster because of the rains and the winds. We have Waiti sitting above Waita because our awa flow to the oceans, makes sense. And then the positions of Hiwa and Poitakawa, I don't personally I have not yet had kōrero passed down to me, e pānaki, their positions, but they do make a pair. But everything else in the cluster, and Matariki herself being in the middle, she's the mother, she's kind of looking after them. They're all there for a reason. And they're not just randomly placed. It just wouldn't make sense if you took it anywhere else. Also, astronomically, I find this really cool. Should go back before I do that. So Matariki, she's a really big star. So she's astronomically, this is actually a size comparison of our sun, Te Rā, to Matariki. They're a massive whetū. And the really incredible thing that I find about our kōrero of Matariki is that, you know, Matariki's the kai whakahaere, she's the conductor, the mother, she's looking after these whetū, and she guides them through the sky, and that's our kōrero. Engari, when we speak of them astronomically, and this is what I know through mahi at Stardome, is that Matariki is literally the biggest star, and she has the most gravity. She literally holds the cluster together astronomically. So as those stars move through the galaxy, Matariki is actually holding them together, which I find really incredible. And those other stars are much smaller than Matariki. So she really is the conductor. It really is Te Whānau or Matariki. And as they travel through space, they are traveling together, which I just find really incredible. You know, our kōrero is also what we know as science, you know? So, erua, it's the same thing for me. Ne. Okay, this little video, I've tried to make this video, might be a little bit hoha. This is a recreation of the sky, hopefully if it's not cloudy. But if it's clear next Tuesday, which is the day of Matariki, which is 21st of June this year, I've done this little video to show you what we're actually going to see for Matariki, how to see those whetū. So this is looking east in the morning, itiata. And we've already got two things. We've got Venus, which is really bright, and Pōanga. I'll come to Pōanga in a little bit. Those are two really bright things we'll see. There we go. So just rolling through time. We're going about 30 seconds per second. So slowly we get the stars rising. So there's Matariki, really small. A lot of people are shocked of how small they are. It's actually a really small cluster. Mercury is also following. And then we get Te Kokota, which is this triangular shape you can see kind of just over there. That's also known as the horns of Taurus, the bull. And then we get Tautoru, those three bright stars, also known as Orion's belt. And this is when light from Te Rā will start to actually enter our sky. So this is the exact view of what we should be seeing on the 21st on Tuesday morning. I'm personally getting up, I'm going ka haere au ki te tihi o Maunga Kia. So I'm going to go up to the summit of, what's the English name? One Tree Hill, which is where I work. So we're hopefully going to be getting this view. So this is what we see just before the sun comes up. So this year, these are our guides to find Matariki. So you've got Matariki being a little cluster. The reason that we have other stars to help us though is because Matariki is not a bright star cluster. They're very, very small. They're dim. And also, you know, being in our cities, we have a lot of light pollution. So it's actually really hard for us to see stars in the city, as we know. It's a form of pollution, the same way that we pollute everything else. Our skies are really polluted there. So we've lost a lot of our views from the stars. So this year, some guides for Matariki. The first one is Venus. That's going to be really bright. It's going to be like crazily bright. It'll be the brightest thing in the sky. Venus is Kopu. We'll find Matariki just below Venus. We also have Mercury. It's kind of a little bit dimmer. Te Kokota is this triangle shape. That's called the horns of the bull. But if you go this way to Tautoru and Pōanga, these two are really important to find Matariki. So the way that I always tell people to find Matariki is to look for Tautoru, Orion's belt. A lot of people actually, they know these whetū as the pot. If you grew up in New Zealand, you might know the pot. A lot of people call it, this is meant to be a pot. So that's the bottom of the pot, comes up there, and then that's the handle of the pot. So that's the pot. A lot of people know the pot. This is actually Orion. But the reason we're not using it as Orion is because it's upside down, because it's a Greek kōrero, so different for us. But this whetū Puanga is my kōrero is that Puanga is the sibling of Matariki. These two are related. So Matariki and Puanga is the older sibling, brighter, higher in the sky. And a lot of iwi actually use that star as te tohu or te poho, the sign of the new year. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But a kind of funny story is the rivalry between Matariki and Puanga. So every single year, Puanga will rise first, and it'll rise higher, and it will be brighter. And that's because Puanga is trying to outshine Matariki, and it's trying to get the sun to rise next to Puanga. Every single year, Puanga rises and goes, look at me, titiro. It wants to be the star that the sun rises next to, but every single year, the sun drifts to Matariki. So there's that kōrero that the beauty of Matariki, of the star cluster, draws the sun towards Matariki every single year, and it pisses Puanga off, but it happens every single year, which is, I find that a funny kōrero. Kei te marama, does that kind of make sense to see the whetū this year? I'm just looking at everyone nodding, okay. By the way, please talk to me, because otherwise I just ramble and keep talking.
Keep going, we're loving it.
This is an awesome kōrero.
I think
Right.
tēnā koe, Josh, I think
Tautoko.
to do with asking questions, Amuri tō kōrero.
Kei te pai.
Yeah, so they're not plundering you all at once.
Oh, no worries, yeah.
Okay.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so we've just, this photo here, we're looking at a different part of the sky. This constellation, the group of stars, to the west is known as Scorpius. So this is the big stinging tail of Scorpius. Now the kōrero behind this is that, you know, go back 1,000 years. Imagine our tupuna when they were first arriving through the first waka that voyaged here. We don't have scorpions in Aotearoa, we don't. And so our tupuna, they didn't know what a scorpion was. So when they were looking up at the sky here, they didn't see a scorpion. We actually know this as te mato a Maui. So this is the fishhook of Maui. And you can see the position of it. It's looking into this really dense area in the sky of stars. So that's actually the core, the center of our galaxy. And te ingoa Māori mo te Milky Way, te ika whenua o te rangi. So te ika, the fish in the sky, which is a really cool name because when we see the hook, it hooks into the galaxy, te ika, and it drags the galaxy across the sky. So as we go throughout the year, whenever you can see te mato, the hook, you'll see the Milky Way and it drags the galaxy, which is just a really, really cool thing to see. You can currently see this too in our skies, which is really cool. But the reason I'm looking at this whetū, this group of stars specifically, is for a star called Rehua. So Rehua, we did, I showed you the whakapapa of Matariki earlier. So Matariki and Rehua had the tamariki of Matariki, and that was with the whetū called Rehua. So that he used to be together with Matariki. They're no longer together though, and they're actually in opposite ends of the sky. So if you looked to the east and you saw Matariki, you'd look to the west and you'd see Rehua in the exact opposite area. So they're kind of polar opposites in the sky. But the reason that this whetū is really interesting to me is because they have this little dance that they do together. I'm going to try and show you. So this video, I tried to recreate this. Hopefully this kind of makes sense. But on the right, we have Matariki in the east, and we have Rehua in the west. So these videos that I've made, this is during the time of Matariki, so this is now. I've paused the time, but what I'll do, I'm going to turn on the time, and I want you to watch what both do at the same time. So as time starts, you see Matariki rises, Rehua sets, he leaves, and Matariki keeps rising, and then it'll be daytime essentially. I'll do that again actually. So again, Matariki rises, Rehua sets. So the kōrero around these two is that they're separated. They don't want to be together. So the minute Matariki starts to rise, Rehua sees her and he goes, oh, ka kite, and he gaps it. He doesn't want to be in the sky. And the opposite happens if Rehua is rising. So if Rehua comes up, Matariki leaves. They're on the opposite ends of the sky. So they're never in the sky for long together because they're separated essentially. I don't know why they're separated, but they have this weird dance that they do together. And the thing about this dance that they do of Matariki rising, Rehua setting, go back and do it. What this means is that Rehua is actually, for a lot of iwi, Rehua is the tohu o te tauhou, the sign of the new year. Because for some whānau, while we're, lots of us are looking out to the east towards Matariki, some whānau look to the west, they look for the setting of Rehua. Because Rehua is setting at the same time as Matariki rising. So it's a different tohu, a different sign that we can actually use for the new year. So Matariki is just one group of stars for Te Tauhou, and a lot of us use Matariki. Engari, Matariki is not a homogeneous holiday. As we all know, we have different tikanga, different kawa, different meta dialects, between our iwi, even within hapu. And Matariki is the same. Te Tauhou is not the same for everyone. So some of us actually use that star rehua instead of Matariki. So the setting of a star can also signify the new year. Kei te marama, does that kind of make sense? I know it's a bit hoha with like a flat screen. Aye. All right, kia ora, haere tonu. Oh, watch it again. Okay, down in my whenua. So this photo, I took this in my whenua. This is in Takapo. You might know it as Tekapo. It's actually Takapo. This is in Te Waipounamu. So that's me standing over there. I look great over there. You can see Matariki, that little cluster of stars right there. So this isn't a real photo. So everything I've shown so far is through a telescope or an animation. This is a real photo that I took. So you can see Matariki, you go this way and you get to Te Kokota, the triangular shape. And if you keep going, you get to Tautoru and Wānanga, which are just over there. So those are our guides for Matariki. We've got Te Kokota, Tautoru, well that's the pot, what people call it. And then you've got Wānanga. There we go. Puanga just up the top. I'm going to come to Puanga actually, is because I've talked a bit about Matariki and Rehua. Now I want you to imagine, so this photo I take, this is in Takapo, so this is on the eastern side of Te Waipounamu, the South Island, and those mountains you can see in the background, that's the Southern Alps. Now from this vantage point, I was quite far away from the Southern Alps, they're really far away. Engari, if you have been to the west coast of the South Island, you'll know that the Southern Alps are right there, near the mountains are like right by the ocean. So I want you to imagine if you were on the west coast and it was now and you go, oh, time for Matariki, and you wake up, if you look to the east, you won't see Matariki. We're all looking for the stars like this, of Tautoru pointing us to Matariki. If you're on the west coast, this is your problem. There's a massive mountain range that's blocking your view, near. And this isn't specific just to the South Island, there's other places around the Motu where this will happen. So what that means is that if we don't see Matariki, guess who is still there? Puanga, she's high and bright in the sky. So she does win sometimes she does win over Matariki. But that also means that Puanga is a tohu o te tauhou. She is also a sign of the new year. So for a lot of our whānau, my hapu, we don't use Puanga because we can see Matariki ki Aotearoa and Bluff. We look over to the ocean. Engari, for the hapu of my iwi on the west coast, they use Puanga because the Southern Alps are just blocking their view. They just couldn't literally see those whetū. So, and I know that also our whānau in Taranaki, I know that they also use Puanga. You've probably heard people actually say, oh, Puanga te tauhou. They don't even call it Matariki because they've got their own whetū relating to the new year. So yeah, just different ways. There's Rehua, we've got Matariki, we've got Puanga. There's even another star called Atutahi, which is also used. I won't get into that now because I'll be talking for hours, but there's a lot of different ways for us to actually signal te tohu or te tauhou, lots of different ways. Okay, back to this photo. The reason I actually came to this photo is there's a really special group of stars here. We've looked at Matariki, Te Kokota, Tautoru, and Puanga. These whetū is in the Western concept Orion and Taurus. For Māori, we know this is Te Waka Orangi. So this is a constellation. I've just overlaid a photo, but if I take the photo away, I want you to I'm going to dart between them. So you've got Matariki over there. You can see it in the relative. Te Kokota, that triangular shape, the sails. Come back this way, that's Tautoru. That's where a man named Taramai Nuku lives. He's on his waka, this is his waka. He's over there. Oh, forward one. And then up there, you can see this trail of stars. Can you see this kind of like line coming this way? That is the net that he's casting out. And then down there, we have these bright stars, a little cluster. You can see them right there. It's kind of hard to see in this photo because Takapo is one of the darkest places in the world. So there's so many stars. It was even hard for me to see. But when you are not as dark place, you can actually see this really well. So we know this is Te Waka o Paramainaku, and the kōrero e Pānaki behind this, related to this group of stars, is that Paramainaku is a man in the sky that he looks after for 11 months of the year. He's in the sky and he's looking after our mate. So he casts out his net and he collects the dead for the year, and they're cast down into this little cluster right over there. So throughout the year, as people pass away, our mate go to Te Waka o Rangi, and Paramainaku gathers them for 11 months of the year. And that's also with Matariki at the brow. And then during Matariki though, this waka is gone. It goes behind the sun, and that is the time where Paramainaku casts ngā whetū into the sky. He casts the dead out into the sky, and that is when he hands them over to Pohutakawa, and she looks after them. She gives them the tour of the sky, essentially. So this is a constellation that is connected to our mate, it's connected to Matariki, and it's connected to it's essentially everything that happens in the year, because this constellation is visible for 11 months of the year. It's just that one time period in Matariki that it dips behind the sun, it hides, the stars are cast out, and it reappears with an empty net, ready to collect the souls of our mate for the year that's ahead, essentially. Yeah, so there's a lot of connections to this with our mate, and yeah, Matariki is a time also, I'll get into this later, to really acknowledge our mate, people that we've lost in the year, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Does that make sense? Yeah, we're following. I'm so used to talking like in a Wānanga space where people are like talking to me, so I feel when it's just a screen. Okay, Nike is the science behind Matariki. So this little thing, this is a little diagram I've made. So we have Te Rā, the sun in the middle, we've got Papatūānuku over there, and this is the orbit of the Earth going around the sun. So I've kind of tried to divide up this orbit. So this is the path that we're taking around the sun. Yeah, so just turn on time. You can see Earth, we're passing through time as we go, throughout the year. We've got different months, and you can see Matariki off in the distance. So super, super far away from us, like 440 light years far away from us. Now the orbital mechanics behind Matariki, there is a lot of real science in this. So because Matariki is in what we call a zodiac constellation, so that's Taurus, you might know the star signs, so like Sagittarius, Aries, Cancer, Leo, the star signs, there's 12 of them. There are 12 months in a year, and Taurus is the constellation where Matariki lives. So there's a period in our orbit where Matariki dips behind the sun. So this period in red, this is where we don't see Matariki. So in about May, Matariki goes behind the sun. It's gone for about 28 days, and then in June, it reappears. So this is when we do not see Matariki. That is when Paramainaku goes behind the sun with Matariki and casts our mate up into the sky. But how this kind of works in a practical sense is that when Matariki disappears, about here, we go through that month period, and then we get to here, which is where we're at now. That means from last Matariki, we were there, and also last Matariki, we've just got to there again. So that means Earth has completed a single orbit around the sun. That means we've done a year. So Matariki is a stellar calendar. We're using the stars to keep time instead of the sun. So nowadays we have Gregorian calendars. So we use 365 days a year, which doesn't always add up. But back in the day, we had a stellar calendar and we had a lunar calendar. So our calendar used ngā whetū and te maramataka, the stars, and the lunar calendar. So it's a different way to keep time for us. I find it much more relevant to us here in Aotearoa because we have such different skies down here, and everything, a Gregorian calendar, again, it's a northern idea that also came from Europe, from Greece. Their concepts of time are different to us. So we have different concepts of time. We just happen to live on a 365-day year. So that's kind of, does that make sense? It's kind of hard to show this on a flat screen sometimes, but there's empirical science and mātauranga, I muri a Matariki. Behind Matariki, there is really a lot of science and real stuff happening. So, our ancestors, they were tohunga. They understood the stars, the sun, the moon, the cycles, and the changings of seasons. They were really incredible scientists and still are. Now, what I'm going to get into next is Oh.
So, can you explain a little bit more about how our tupuna navigated using the stars and these Matariki?
Yeah, so one of the there was one of the constellations which was actually we talked about Te Matua Maui, and so what we'd looked at actually before, we've got the Matariki and the Reho video when they're going like this, going up and down, up and down. So that dance of stars rising and setting, stars will only rise in one particular place for one day of the year. So the next day it'll be slightly different, next. And so tohunga throughout Polynesia, they had spent they would be up all night basically looking at the stars year after year after year until they understood the cycles of the stars. And that's what tohunga are. They are just, absolute experts of the stars. So year by year, they would see that certain stars were always falling in the same place. And Rehua was one of those stars that was always falling at the time through Polynesia. It was falling towards the south. It was always touching the horizon at a certain time. And that in line with Manu, so tohunga were also looking at the Manu every single year. Manu were flying south, and they thought, well, birds are going south. They don't just fly into the ocean. They must be flying somewhere. So year after year, in line with the seasons, knowing that the weather's going to be great, understanding te taiao, they would know what day to leave exactly because of the stars would be setting on exact certain days. So it was this extremely precise calendar of stars, They weren't planning the trips going, oh, it's, good weather today, let's go. Even if it wasn't the best of weather, they would know that in general, the weather would be good because of the seasons, the changing, and the exact precise times. So stellar calendars are incredibly accurate ways to keep time because the stars will fall and rise on exactly the same day for us. And they understood that in Polynesia. So every single year, that's why we had waves of wakas. They didn't just go randomly whenever they wanted. They would always be going at specific times, and that was always relating to ngā whetū. Yeah. So, I always say we all whakapapa ki ngā whetū. We all have whakapapa to the stars, and you can say that in a literal sense of we are made of stardust. We quite literally are, but also our tupuna got here using those stars, those same stars that we see today. So yeah, it's an incredibly accurate way to actually understand te taiao and the changing of seasons too, and it's the same all throughout Polynesia. That's my understanding of it. Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to talk about navigation on a flat screen because you kind of need, for me, I'm a visual learner. I need to see the star to understand it. So yeah, I spend a lot of time under Te Rangipo actually looking and learning and photographing the stars because for me, it's hard to learn about them just looking at a screen, but here we are now. But that gets me into the next part, which actually is, so this little thing, you got the Earth going around. The day that Earth gets about here, so I was just talking about navigation, the day Matariki rises is actually exactly the same. It does not change year by year. It's going to be the exact same day for us on a Gregorian calendar. However, our tupuna didn't use Gregorian calendars, so when Matariki rises, and as I'm sure a lot of us know, the day of Matariki, the public holiday, is actually different every single year. And that's because we don't just rely on the stars, we have the lunar calendar. We have Maramataka, which is what I'll get into. So Maramataka, Ma, white, Rama, light, Marama, the moon. Taka is a cycle, is to go around or to repeat. So Maramataka is the Māori lunar calendar. So this is how we would keep time on a day-to-day sense. We didn't always look at the stars. Sometimes it's cloudy, but the moon was much more easy to see, and it's always there, always present. So Maramataka is how we would actually keep time. And my whakaaro is that, so Maramataka was designed thousands of years ago, and it was designed as a way to ensure that when we got to Aotearoa, that we understood the environment, that we understood how to harvest, how to plant, how to grow, how to fish, all in line with the Maramataka. This was a system that was designed to ensure that our people would survive when they got to Aotearoa. And of course we have. And this is a system that we still use today. So this thing, I'll show you now a little animation. Mata o te marama, the faces of the moon. So this is a sped up view. This is what we see throughout about 29 days, roughly a month. So as we go throughout a month, we get different phases of the moon. We see the waning and the waxing of the moon, what we call it. But you can see that the face of the moon doesn't change. It's always the same side, the same mata. So we call that tidal locking in astronomy. So only one side ever looks at us. So the side we see doesn't change. It's the orbit of the moon that gives us those phases. So this is how we kept time day by day. So this is called maramataka. So every single day would be a different maramataka, different day within the lunar calendar, essentially. So depending on where you're from, again, not the same for everyone. So if you went up north, their maramataka is not going to be the same as down south. If I went down to my whenua, if I went down to Rakiura, Stewart Island, our maramataka is incredibly different because our taiao, our environment is really bloody cold and really different to up here near. So if I took a maramataka from Tamaki and go, down to Rakiura, let's do some planting today. It's too cold down there. So there's different maramataka for different iwi, different hapu, different whenua. So this specific maramataka that I'm showing you, this is from Tamaki. So this is one that I learned and that I know. So it starts in Whiro. Whiro is the darkness, the new moon, when we don't see the moon. And every single day, we see more and more of that same face. And then we get to Rako Nui. So that is the full moon. That's when the moon's at its biggest and its brightest. That was a couple of days ago. So we're in this one. We're in Oike today. So if you go back, we were in that, 4 days ago. So different phases for different things. And this little map that I made is a productivity map. So go back, there we go. So our ancestors, every single day, there were different things that we would be doing for certain days. So there were days for ailing, days for fishing, days for planting. And then we also had days for nothing. So there were days that we didn't actually do a lot. They were like rest days, essentially. Like the phase of huna. Huna means to hide, go to bed, go have a mental health day is what I say. Those are the low energy days. And then we have like things like the kore days, which is apopo, tomorrow is a kore day. So don't Wānanga too hard tomorrow. Kore is nothing, kore, the nothing days. So they're not as productive. And then we also have low energy, the really early phase or late phases like Mauri and Mutu Whenua, which is the ending of a maramataka. This is a really brief overview. I could spend like probably 5 hours talking about maramataka. It's a really deep and complex thing, and there's so much mātauranga within maramataka. I really encourage you guys to like go have a look at your maramataka, where you're from, where you're living at the moment. There's a lot of knowledge in that, and this is just a really brief overview. I'm going to come to this. So this is again just a little visual that I made. But a thing I always talk about within maramataka is the idea of what we would call in a Western concept sustainability. So giving back to look after their environment. That's what maramataka was designed for. It was designed for sustainability. It was designed for us to carry on as people. If we just came to Aotearoa and tore down all the trees, as eventually happened, we wouldn't be here. You have to look after your taiao, your environment. It gives to us, and we have to give back to it. So when we harvest, I'm a tauira of rongoa now. So when we're harvesting rongoa, when I go out and find a kumaraho or a kawakawa, I'm not going to rip off every single leaf from the tree. You take what you need, and you'd always leave things so that it can replenish. Sustainability. Now for our tupuna, sustainability was not a kupu. We don't think about it because that was ingrained in everything we do. We don't take things that we don't need. We always give back to the land because we have a relationship with the whenua that it provides for us, and we have to look after it, especially nowadays because climate change and pollution are such huge raru that we face. And our awa are really polluted. We've lost most of our ngahere. So there's it's a little bit sad. But within maramataka, we have these things, I call them the give back days. We have kind of low energy days around whiro. We have medium, the tamatea phases. We've got high energy phases around Rako Nui. And then we've got, again, the medium energy, the unpredictable days. But within a maramataka, there are 4 phases. I call these the give back days. So we have Oenuku, which is also a kupu for rainbow, the connection between Rangi and Papa. And that's the give back to Rangi Nui Day. So on those days, we look after the sky. When I was learning about this, I learned a lot of this from a tohunga. His name is Ricky Solomon. And I said to him, how do you give back to the sky? How do you look after the sky? And he goes, oh, don't smoke, don't vape on those days. Or even don't fly on a plane. You know, we're still polluting things into our air. So it's a way to, oh yeah, I saw someone driving, walk to work driving, flying on planes, polluting our skies, our air. So there are actually things we can do on those days. I personally, I walk to work every day. It's just my way of actually, you know, not using our cars less, looking about sustainability, not polluting, because, you know, we need to slow down what we're doing. The day of Huna is a low energy day, but it's also a day to give back to Tangaroa. So that's a give back to the ocean day. We look after our ocean. So I know for me, down at my marae, we've got a kura kaupapa behind my marae. And on those days, on the Huna days, our tamariki, we take our tamariki down to Te Tātahi, to the beach, and we clean the beach up. So we pick up rubbish, we take bags down, you know, we're looking after our atua, we're looking after the Tangaroa. And that's something that we can all do, you know. Oike, which is give back to Papatuanuku. So those are the days we're looking after our gardens, essentially. Our marakai, we're looking after the earth. Again, things like not driving, not flying, actually, you know, going up to the ngahere, picking up rubbish, looking after Papatuanuku. So there's a lot of things we can do on that. And then we have to get back to Tane Mahuta, which is kind of the same, which is giving back to our ngahere, our forests. Looking after the atua that give to us, because, you know, all of these things, they're giving to us all the time. Our ngahere, the earth, the sky, the sea, they're giving to us. They're providing for us. Kaimoana, you know, they're providing for us things that we're growing. They're always giving to us. So we give back to these atua because that's the way that we have to be tika, that we give back to them, look after them, and be sustainable. But yeah, sustainability it's just a part of who we are, essentially. And it's something we've got to get back to, I think. Again, that's a very iti kōrero. There's a lot of mātauranga, so I encourage you guys to just like have a look at Maramataka. It's very awesome. This little photo, one more little kōrero. This is a photo. This was in summer, so this is a different time of year. You can see Matariki, Te Kokota, Puanga, super high and bright, Tautoru, easy to see. And then over here, we've got this whetū called Hini Takurua. So Hini Takurua she's the brightest star in the sky. So it's, what's its western name? Sirius is its name. Sirius, it's the brightest star in the sky. Now, Hini Takurua, she is the tohu of, she's kind of she's what we call the winter wife of the sun. So during the winter, Hini Takurua, the sun drifts near Hini Takurua. He gets real close, he gets about here. He drifts towards her, and she's known as the winter wife of Te Rā. But then he's got 2 wives. He's also got a summer wife. So then in summer, he drifts away, which is why we're now seeing her in the sky, because she's looking for the sun. He's not there. He's gone. He's gone to his other mistress. And he's gone to Hini Raumati. Now, Hini Raumati is not a whetū. Hini Raumati is te taio I te raumati, the environment in the summer. So Hini Raumati is embodied by things that we see in the summer. So hot weather, cicadas, things that we see and hear in the summer. She's the embodiment of hot seasons, essentially. So the sun drifts away from Hini Takurua. That's when we know that we're getting into summer. And then Hini Takurua, we see her in the summer because she's out there looking for the sun. And she, just a little kind of cool story that I think. So she's a really cool star. She's connected to all of those other whetū too. And I think might be my last photo I took. So this is one more photo. I took this photo here in Tamaki. I think that's Waiheke, I think. So this was in March. So this was in March when Matariki was getting lower. So all this light, that's light pollution. But this, you can see a different orientation. So in this sense, Matariki is actually going down. She's getting closer to the sun. So this is as Matariki was starting to get lower in the sky. You've got Tautoru pointing you to Matariki, Te Kokota, poanga, and then you've got the net over there, and there's our mate. So the waka's dipping down with the sun, and it's about to be joining the sun. About a month after this photo was taken, you wouldn't be seeing these whetū. So yeah, different time of year, but same kōrero applies. Final bit of our kōrero, e whānau kia Matariki I tēnei pā. How do we celebrate Matariki? So I've had a lot of wānanga with Rangi, Dr. Rangi around this, because when we think of the new year, we all live in Gregorian calendars, 368 days. We think of the new year like in December. We go, the big party, the big countdown, it's, big hui. And that's all fun and great. Engari, Matariki is not that type of new year. There's a very different kaupapa for Matariki. It's not a big, or it can be a big celebration, but it's really different. So Matariki, kind of the three pillars of Matariki that we talked about with Rangi was the past, the present, and the future. So when Matariki, when we're in the time of Matariki, which is now, the three things we're doing is we're looking back. We're looking back at the year that's been. We are celebrating the present, the now, and we're looking forward to the future. So these are the things that we do to celebrate Matariki, which is to reflect, to remember, and to acknowledge. So this is when we're looking at our mate, ne, so people that we've lost throughout the year. It's a time for us to look back and acknowledge them, those that we may have lost, and especially in times of COVID, and there's a lot of sickness going around at the moment. On a personal level, my nana passed away about 5 weeks ago. So I just lost my nana. So for me, this is a time to actually look back and really acknowledge her. She's about to be cast out as a whetū. The present, it's a time to celebrate. It's a time to actually acknowledge the people that are around us. And it's really just a time to spend with whānau, with friends. And, for me, I'm hosting a little potluck dinner tonight with my whānau, with my friends. I'm inviting everyone over. And that's just a way to bring us all together. I think we're so busy in our lives nowadays, and sometimes we forget to actually spend time with people and to reconnect with a lot of our whānau and to really acknowledge and celebrate people. And I know that I'm so busy during Matariki, so for me, I'm like, no, this is my day off tonight, not doing mahi tonight, so I'm spending time with my whānau, my friends, and just to acknowledge everyone and to be present with our whānau. And it's also a time for future. So for me, this is the time that I look forward to, in 12 months, where do I want to be next year? What do I want to be doing? Where do I want to be? What are my goals? What are my aspirations that I'm going to be sending out to Hiwa I Te Rangi, the whetū of our goals, our aspirations? What do I want to be doing for the year ahead? So I'm thinking back to last Matariki. My whakaaro, my thinking last year was what I want to do after I finish. I finished level 5 ronakitanga last year. So when Matariki happened, I was in the middle of it, but I thought about, what I want to be doing next year. And for me, I knew that I want to come back to Te Reo eventually, but I wanted to expand my kete because I was in my 3rd year of Te Reo, and that's why I'm now in Rongoa Māori, because I wanted to expand my kete, and also knowing that, the connections, ki ngā whetū, ki te taiao, the connections to the stars and the environment, everything's connected, everything's related. So for me, now being a tauira of Rongoa, I'm expanding my matauranga, and that's something that I planned to do last year. So I haven't thought of my goals for next year. Who knows what I'll be doing? I think I might actually do whakairo. I'd really love to do carving with our beautiful rako. But yeah, it's a time to look forward, to plan, and to really get excited, I think, too, about the new year. And especially now that it's, this is the first official public holiday. And this is a chance for us, not just as whānau, but this is a chance for us, I think, as a country, as a nation, to actually really move forward together. And, there's going to be a lot of people that take this as a day off, Matariki day off. And yeah, it is. Engari, this is a really incredible opportunity for us to move forward and forge what we want Matariki to be. This is a holiday that's grounded in our whenua. This is grounded in mātauranga Māori. It's grounded in science. It's grounded in whakapapa. And this is now something we acknowledge officially. So it's a really incredible opportunity to share this stuff with whānau, So yeah, my wero to all of you is to take all of my kōrero, and this is what you've remembered so far, and share it with your whānau, because this is I'm really excited about this, and I have been for a while. This little whakatauki here, which I love, which is hoki whakamuri kia anga whakamoa. So this is that we look to the past, to forge the future. And this is what connects Matariki for me is, you know, for Māori, we have this concept of time, which is different from a Western concept. And in a Western concept, we think of time as being in front of us. You know, we look to the future and the past is behind us. Engari, for Māori, we know that we move back into the future. The future is behind us, i muri, yeah. And the past is kind of in front of us. We walk backwards into the time. We look to the past, to our ancestors, and that's what whakapapa is to me. You're looking back to your ancestors to forge our future, because we can't see what's behind us. We can only see what is behind us, and that's where all of our lineage comes from. And this is a little, I guess, karakia me te whakatauki pea, e pā ana ki a Matariki, which is mānawa maia te pūtanga o Matariki, mānawa maia te ariki o te rangi, mānawa maia te mātahi o te tau, mānawa te a Matariki, which is to hail the first appearance of Matariki, to hail the Lord of the Sky, to bring in the new year and to celebrate Matariki. So that last little line is how I'd say to all of you, because I wouldn't really say Happy Matariki, it's the Western concept, like Happy New Year. We would say Mānawa te a Matariki, which is to celebrate, to acknowledge, to bring in the new year. It's a Māori kind of whakaaro around Matariki. Kua mutu o, I think. That's kind of the end of my little kōrero. Probably have to get back to class soon. I'm more than happy to have more kōrero and take pātai around Matariki. There we go. Kei te pai koutou.
Hi, ka pai matu, Josh. We do have a pātai from Sabrita. How long does Matariki run for?
Oh, that's a good question. So Matariki starts on the last, actually, I'm going to go back to my presentation because this actually, I should have mentioned this. Here we go. Slide. There we go. Oh, no. Okay. So Matariki is on the 21st this year. Just share my screen again. And that is because a certain Maramataka day, I don't know why I didn't mention this, is when we start Matariki. So as we go throughout the year, different phases, we were on, what were we on? So here we go. So Rako Nui was a few days ago. We are currently in, I think, week here. We're in this one here. So this is today, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So Matariki starts on the last quarter phase. It's called Tangaroa. And then we do Matariki for a week. This is a week-long period. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Whittle, we don't celebrate in Whittle because it's low energy. That's the resetting. That's the atawa of darkness. But Matariki is a week-long thing. So does that kind of make sense? So that's Tuesday, and then that's the rest of the week until kind of next week as well, the week after, essentially. So it's a week-long thing. It's not it's not like what I mentioned. It's not the big countdown and then it's like a big party and then it's done. Matariki is a week-long thing, and that's why we have Wānanga, we have big, good kai, we eat lots of food, spend time with people. We've got time to actually celebrate. It's not this big countdown and big hui. Yeah. Kei te marama, does that make sense?